Hello and welcome to Sterling Armory's Sword Talk. This is episode 33, and we have a treat of an episode today because we have a great special guest coming on, which I've been excited to get on, and we've actually been talking for quite a while about doing it, but we haven't had a chance. So I'm glad that he's able to come on today. And so if you're new to our channel, Sterling Armory is a bunch of nerds that like to drink and make blades. And our Sword Talk is our podcast where we talk all things sword related, whether it's film and movies or Hema martial arts or sword making in general, which is going to be what today's mostly going to be about. And it's just a great podcast where we talk everything sword related. So if you like our channel, if you like anything sword related, please let us know in the comments. And let's go ahead and get started. So real quick, before we bring our special guest on, we're one short today. So normally we have Josh and Colton in, but Josh hopefully will be able to join us a little later. In the meantime, Colton, you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Colton from Copperthorn Customs. I don't know, sword maker, welder. I don't know, all the things.
We're very practiced at this.
Yeah, I should have this down, but for whatever reason it changes every time.
I'm the same way. Don't worry.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok on Copperthorn Customs, and definitely over on the Sterling Armory Facebook page, I believe Instagram page, and
soon to be website.
Soon to be website. I didn't know if I should say that or not.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Soon to be website, but
yeah,
it's getting worked on. First time in 15 years.
Yes.
It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm Chris. Again, you can find me on Sterling Armory on Facebook, mainly on Facebook now. It's really our biggest following at the moment, but we're looking to expand to get to other platforms because we realize not everyone's on Facebook. So, but let's bring our special guest on, who I'm super excited to have. So, hey! So, Kerry, I believe anyone who watches this show or is in the sword community anywhere in the United States knows who you are. But you want to give a quick intro?
Sure. Kerry Stagmer. I own Baltimore Knife and Sword, and we have a little YouTube series called Man at Arms. We're selling at almost every major Renaissance festival in the United States. And kind of a crazy ride. We've been at it a long time.
Yeah, I think I was talking to you about this, but I'm trying to remember. But and I know I talked to Matt about this a while back. But if you guys, had I known about you guys 2 or 3 years earlier, so I got into the Renaissance Fair circuit after my martial art career, and I was probably actually in the middle of my martial art career. So I was probably 15, 16, 17 getting into the Ren Fair circuit. And I got into it because we couldn't find good blades for the martial arts side. So we would go to the Ren Fair and get them. And then we're like, wait a minute, since we're here, we might as well start acting in the show. But it was like 2 or 3 years in that we started getting your guys' stuff. And had I gotten that when I started, I probably would have never made blades myself because what you guys were making was exactly what I wanted. So, but I'm kind of glad that I missed that because then I got into making that myself. And the first time I saw you guys' blades, they were actually, I have a vivid memory in mind. They were on a rack with like 2 metal bars and they were all hanging down in the rack. And it was a black tea shop at the old Bay Area site.
Bay Area. Yeah, so that would have, well, there were a couple people that could have been there. What year do you think that was?
96.
96. So that would have been probably would have been with Roy Cox, who was the jouster back then.
I think, yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, so Roy was probably, he was making rapiers, and we were making all the broadswords for him. Yeah, 96. That would have been.
They all had the twisted guards on them. It was 96 or 97.
Yeah, it would have still probably been him. That would have been before Legacy Forge, and I did a lot of business together.
Yeah, so
that's about the beginning, though. That's about when we really got going.
Yeah, because at that time, that year, I remember Legacy only had Starfire. And we thought they were one and the same company. We didn't know they were two different companies.
Well, they were going to be. That's something else we could touch on. First off, I mean, nobody ever thought that Zach from Starfire would still be in business this late. I mean, I don't know what his age is, but he's certainly over 80. So you guys better be ready for a long ride as sword makers because he'll be there. Zach certainly shows the way. So
yeah. I just realized we forgot to talk about our drinks.
I was going to say we forgot our drinks.
Yeah, we did. Well, I guess let me time out there then and say, so usually on and this is to everyone watching, usually when we do our podcast, I was so excited to talk to our guests that I forgot.
Yeah.
Usually we talk about our drinks. So, Colton, you want to go ahead and start with what you're drinking?
Yeah. So I have got myself a Red's Wicked Sour Apple going on today. So nothing crazy, but delicious.
Yeah. Kerry, what do you have?
Yeah, I'm about as boring as they get. This is just black tea, just hot black tea. That's all it is. So usually I have a lot of half and half in it, but it's just black tea today.
I was in the Ren Fair mood for today's episode, and so I pulled out my old pewter mug, and I got my Winter Jack in there. So, but yeah, I was gonna say, sorry for the forgetfulness there. Yeah, all the guards on those back then had the twisted guards, and I was doing that. I just started doing that on my blades.
So like a half by half with a twisted end on both ends, yeah.
So I went and I saw them hanging, and I was like, "Are those my blades?" And then I got, and I was like, "Those are better than my blades." So I was like, "Somebody has the same idea I have." And then I think it must have been Roy I talked to. I don't remember. But I went to buy one that day, and I was only 16 or 17. I couldn't afford it. So when I went home, because yours, I believe, I think only one had a fuller in it, and the rest were just edge beveled down.
Probably, yeah. There were, fullers. A lot of the equipment that we all kind of take for granted today was really hard to come by in the 80s and 90s. Super, super expensive. So, and we were selling a fair amount of stuff that was more budgety. I'm guessing in that time period, probably $165, maybe something like that. Does that sound right?
No,
it might have been. Was it more than that by then? Yeah, I don't remember. But it wasn't. So they were relatively budget, and then I were probably $60 more on anything that had a fuller. Because we've kind of kept that spacing, $50 to $60 more for a base fuller on stuff.
So that was what caused me to go out and buy a mill. So,
yeah, there you go.
So I bought my first mill to do fullers because I thought I would use a radius cutter to mill them in, and that was my first time ever buying a mill. So
right.
But yeah, so was that me?
No, I think that was me.
I guess so. One of the big things we wanted to talk about is you guys are pushing out. I think everybody knows Baltimore Knife and Swords products and what they are, but they may not realize how much work goes into it behind the scenes and how much volume you guys actually pump out. So you guys are doing a lot. And Colton and Josh and I, we'll get maybe 3 to 5 swords a month, and you guys are doing, you said, I think 60 or something or more a week. So
yeah, we're minimum pretty much about 60 pieces a week, and that's going to run from the beginning of our Ren Fair season, which is basically the middle of January, and then we'll run by the time we hit the end of August, when the fall season is absolutely ridiculous. So it's about 100 pieces a week all through fall.
Man. So I guess. So our concern has always been if we're putting out too much. So we're concerned about burnout. And I guess I'm curious, have you guys felt that, or do you feel that all the time?
Oh, hell yeah. Sometimes it's every day. But, it's still, it's still the job, too. That's another thing is while there are a lot of makers, there aren't necessarily a lot of makers that want to approach it full time, which is great that they can support that now. I mean, it was very difficult in the 80s and 90s. There weren't the level of customers and interest like there is now. There's no way the industry could support it. But also to have a larger shop. one of the things that really helps me is we're at 9 full-time and 3 part-time. So there's a lot of interaction here. And I mean, there can be frustration because it's, it's like 10 artists with you all the time. And that can be, can be a little stressful, but really, we got a fantastic group right now. And half of my job is I tell people I'm a cat herder, you try and keep artists going. But burnout is nice. The one thing that's nice here is if you start to feel a little burned out, like on Fridays, we've already shipped all our product. Everything goes out Thursday, overnight FedEx, which imagine shipping, a couple 100 pounds of swords every Thursday. FedEx is terribly expensive. But then Fridays, we'd usually do some heat treating in the morning. And then in the afternoons, like the guys who have been grinding all week or, working on fittings all week or whatever are out there making Damascus and working at the hammers, which I think is, it's not like a reward, but it feels rewarding. I can tell you definitely to like do something that is unrelated to the rest of your job. And, and forging is definitely something that I think that everybody really enjoys. So we have one primary guy who's in the forge doing hot work all week. And everybody else, there's so little hot work compared to how much grinding and sanding and polishing and machining there is. So it does feel like, we can get in and do that kind of stuff. Or we're casting, we pour a fair amount of bronze, and, or silver and, that kind of stuff. So you try and mix it up to keep it from being a burnout.
Yeah. And every piece you guys do is still one of a kind, right? Or do you have some?
No, there is definitely some product that has become, just kind of a bread and butter product where instead of the blades being forged, they're, a fair number of them are laser cut from alloy plate, and then they're processed different ways. And there's some things that were, we kind of meant to be one of a kind or two of a kind or something that have, since become, 1,000 pieces. We make like a fantasy thing we call a slasher, which is like a kind of a piece that's got some curves and some spikes in it and things like that. And Matt actually designed that probably, I guess we were in the middle, probably like 2000, maybe 98, 99, 2000, something like that. And, there have been years where it hasn't been a popular product for us because we don't do a lot of that kind of crazy fantasy stuff. And then there's been other years where it's just exploded. And then that really popular streamer Valkyrie, if you look behind her on her wall full of swords behind her, she has those slashers all over the wall. So, you wouldn't think that kind of thing would catch people, but when you got a streamer that's she's pulling 15 to 25,000 concurrent viewers when she's playing video games. Jeez. And that affects the market. It just does, because those are people that are all interested in swords in some way, even if they're just gamers too.
Yeah. So when you guys are working those, so when you're doing the guards and pommels, are those always the same, or
they're not always the same? There have become a fair number of pieces that have maybe one or two variations that are the most popular, but we definitely will do just about anything. It'll be like, hey, don't use that cut part. Let's forge something and twist it and upset the ends, or cast a special bronze piece for that. And those get mixed up a lot. And we have, in pommels, we probably have 20 to 25 standard designs. But of course, that's just as they come off the lathe. And then from there, you can do an incredible amount with them, faceting and twisting and pineapple work that we do with knife wheels, and so you're ornamenting things differently all the time, even if the base unit is the same.
Do you think that helps? Do you allow the guys there to kind of have free reign on that? Or
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. There'll be some pushback from me once in a while, because we'll have somebody that might be experienced in metalwork, but might not be very sword experienced, and they'll want to try some. They'll want to try something that we've already gone, hey, that's not okay. It's just like the guy who wants to make the pointy point on his sword. You know what I mean? He wants that. He wants a sword point that looks like that. And it's like, no, we're not doing that. But one thing that's nice is that the popularity of our brand is such that there is somebody for every piece. So the freedom for them to experiment, even if I don't like the way it looks is still there, because one or two of anything will find a home. You know, we have people who collect us who will just simply buy something that is different. You know, and that's something we struggle with, because you don't want the stuff to be the same all the time, because you get burnout with customers.
Yeah, that's what
we don't. Yeah, we don't want that, because let's face it, nobody buys their last sword, right? They might buy their last sword from you, but they don't buy their last sword. They just keep buying one way or another. You know, they're looking from the time they buy something, even before it arrives at their house, they're trying to figure out how to buy the next thing. So it's like any collector.
Yeah.
So, we try and keep something new all the time.
Yeah, and I know everyone down here in Florida and all the circuits that I ran in down here, I mean, they loved it because everything was always, even though the blade might be the same, the handle parts were slightly different, so every piece was a little unique.
Yeah.
And so when I started making blades here, I actually had a lot of local fighters saying, hey, they would show me an image of one of your blades, and they would say, can you make this? And I'm like, no. Like, you can call Matt and Kerry, and they'll make it for you. But that's a BKS blade. I'm not going to make you that. And so I started getting that a lot, and that's why so I started making things to be a bit different as much as I could. And so I just thought that was really funny. I was like, guys, like, you know, they ship. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of blades you guys ship down here. So,
well, I mean, yeah, and Florida has been a solid market for us since probably 86, maybe 85. I guess 85 it's been one of our strongest markets all this time. So coming up on well, that's a long time. Now I'm not saying the words.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to. I know we talked about this when we were at the Hammer many years ago, but I'm trying to remember what got you into, and maybe people watching may not know, what got you into making blades in the first place? Because you started as a one-man team for a while, right?
Well, not actually. Actually, there were three of us originally. My older brother, who I think have you met Emery?
Yeah, he's the other engineer, right?
Yeah. And then we had a third partner who was really into reenacting, and so early on, we weren't aimed at swords. We were really creating a company where we supplied reenactors with all kinds of, clothing, not just weapons. And we were having them made at, various places all over, and the armor was coming from Derek Cole in England, and the swords that we were selling, we were actually selling marteau in the very beginning before we were even making. And so that goes back to about 1980, 1981. And we had a 7th class remanufacturer's permit, and we were reactivating. There were a lot of machine guns from World War II all over Pennsylvania that had been deactivated or, like welded up, basically, is what they were doing to them, and hanging on the walls of restaurants and stuff like that all over Pennsylvania in the Gun Act of 68 when they closed it all up. So we had a remanufacturing permit from the ATF that allowed us to reactivate those guns, and we modified them into blank firing for for reenactors and for movies and stuff. And that was really what we thought the core of the business was going to be. And then it kind of split apart. Everybody's interest kind of started to change by the mid 80s, and my brother went back to Tulsa to go back and finish his degree because he had been at Westinghouse working on the B-1 bomber project. And when that project finished, he was in the radar systems for that. Somebody at HR went, wait a minute, you don't have a degree, you can't work at Westinghouse. and they fired him. Or not fired, but you know what I mean. They let him go because they couldn't extend his contract. And so he went back to Tulsa to finish his degree at Tulsa. So the business kind of split there, and we decided that we were selling at the Maryland Renaissance Festival because that was a good place to sell, but we were selling marteau and anything that we could kind of make, which was mostly my brother and I cobbling stuff together in our parents' garage. And, I wouldn't say that we were skilled, but we were handy, making swords like you do in the very beginning kind of thing. And then I don't exactly know if the festival approached us or we approached them as a way to eliminate some of our competition. to go to completely handmade swords if there would be no imports at the show. And that pushed us. So that first year, I think we made 13 swords. And that was, I'm guessing that was 80. I think that was 84. I think that was 1984, probably about then. And then, both my brother and the other partner kind of faded out. And I took on two other partners that were really gung-ho young guys that we did. So we called ourselves Northeast Armory at that point. And we did, that's where we kind of got the production started. And a lot of it, like I said, a lot of it was going to Florida. Roy Cox was selling for us out of the Florida shows. And just kind of a little bit here and there outside of that. And then, of course, the Maryland Renaissance Festival. So by 87, I had left my job and was doing that full time. And I came back from the Key Marathon Renaissance Festival, which I have no idea if it still happens. I've been there for many, many, many years. But I returned from that show to an empty warehouse. The other two guys had packed the entire shop while I was gone, and it was pretty substantial. And I had taken out pretty big bank loans and bought equipment, and it was a very, very bad situation. And so that was about 89, and I moved into a big stone carriage house in the center of Baltimore, and that's when, in 90, like January of 90 is when I formed Baltimore Knife. Alone at the time, although we built the business pretty quickly from there, primarily making armor. That was actually a bigger part of the business for me, was making suits of armor for jousters. I was making all the armor for New Riders, the Golden Age, which is Kelly Bailey, based out of Verona, Florida. I guess I wasn't the only person, because John Perry is still down in Tampa somewhere. He's still making armor. He was making armor for them. He's a very good armor. And just kind of, the armor customers are very different than sword customers. If you think you've ever had an unhappy sword customer, you don't know what it's like to make armor and try and get it to people. So we kind of faded that part of the business out, even though we kept doing a lot of it in the shop. I would say that probably 70% of the shop was an armor shop, and the rest was sword making, even though we were producing more swords by the middle 90s. It was definitely it was more of a sword operation at that point. So, and I was traveling to other shows myself at that point, but by the late 90s I was only wholesaling or doing the Maryland Renaissance Festival myself.
Awesome. Now you guys are pretty much in every show, right? I can't think of
one. I mean, it's easier to count the shows that we're not in, right?
Right, yeah. I can't even think of one that you're not in.
And if you look at those shows, if you go to those shows, the actors and all the jousters are still using our swords, even if we're not there. And there's only a handful. I mean, we just have a little bit of stuff at Georgia. We no longer have anybody at Michigan or Kansas City. And then I can't remember the name of it. There's a newer show in Texas that runs in the spring. Can't remember. They call it Sherwood Forest or something. Sherwood Renaissance Festival. Maybe. I think we're not there, but basically everywhere else. There's almost no other show that we don't have some presence in. Although at this point, none of it is myself retailing. We're strictly a wholesaler at this point, and we support the deal. A lot of times those dealers initially might have been afraid to use our name. They were trying to make it sound like they were the makers. That was certainly the case up and down the West Coast, where everybody on the West Coast refers to our swords as Slayer swords because they weren't telling anybody who was making them at first.
Really?
And once Man at Arms happened, it was a different deal. What I mean? It's a different thing. It became something where they could, they would boast about having product from us. So.
Yeah.
But
we have, I still do a lot. So we kind of have two sides of the business.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be mainly reenactment and Ren Fair stuff, but now it's actually kind of flipped. We still do Renaissance fairs and stuff locally, especially, but the majority of our stuff now is on the Hema side.
Right. So you're doing sharps mostly.
Sharps and then sparring blunts. So
sure.
with big tips on them. Yeah. So it's almost like a feather with a big old blunt end on it.
Right. Yeah, but you're not doing rolled tips, right? Because I'll give you a lot of hell for that.
I'm not.
Yeah.
A lot of companies still are though, and
Yeah.
I don't quite know
Now,
why.
I'm a pretty outspoken critic, and whenever they start back at me, I'm like, I have scars from rolled tips.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm the poster child for that. So at any point, if somebody tries to talk me out of it, I'm like, nah, you guys are just simply wrong. Anytime you strike a hard target with a rolled tip, that tip has a large chance of breakage, and if that tip breaks, you're left with this razor sharp curve. And I've been stabbed in the back actually from that. So I'm a pretty loud critic about that.
Oh.
Yeah, so what we do with ours is we actually start with like 5/16 inch to 3/8.
Right. Okay, sure.
And then we do a drastic distal taper in the first third down to about 1/8 inch, and then it's a feather from then on out, and then it's real flexible in the last. But then the tip flares back up to that 5/16 or 3/8.
Right. So we start on feathers, which we make, but we don't even publish at all. We actually start with quarter, but we take them hot and we upset that end hot, about that much of the end to get that bigger flare. So you're just starting with thicker material, whereas we do some hot work to fatten it up on the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was going to ask if you guys do anything for the Hema community or any sharps.
We do some, but honestly, we're so overwhelmed with the other work that's what kind of faded us out from doing it. We were doing it very early on where, we like to mount all kinds of guards on stuff. And in the earlier time with Hema, which I may say earlier, let's say 10 years ago, no one was touching anything that wasn't standard. They wanted the most basic plain thing that they could get either from Albion or I forget who else was making it, early on. And they wanted nothing fancy. Of course, now there's tons of makers making all kinds of stuff, and you see a lot of different stuff out there. But early on, there was a lot of pushback. And, when you already are in a weird situation like we are, where we can sell everything that we make, and we're sold out every week, you get pushback from an industry that you just don't feel like is, at that point, being that supportive. And we just were kind of done, And really, I got more interested and involved in it because Long Point, which was one of the biggest events in the U.S., is up the street. It was like 10 blocks away from me, so it made sense for us to kind of get involved.
I think it's starting back up finally. Didn't I hear that? Or I know it was out for a while. Oh, can you hear me?
I don't know if they're back going or not.
Yeah, well, you know what? I could be mixing up, but I want to say that I heard that they were going to start that back up.
I feel like they had moved to DC at one point and then moved back. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they moved to DC. Did not go well.
I think they still are doing it at the Turf Valley Resort, which is, it's literally up the street from me.
Yeah.
So
it'd be cool to get up there to that.
Yeah.
But you guys are also doing. I think we were talking a little bit before we got on live here, but all the video stuff you guys are doing, all the production work as well.
Yeah.
You guys have a lot going on.
So we became involved in Man at Arms on the Almy channel on YouTube when Tony Swatton kind of backed off of the whole thing, and there was kind of a hunt for who they would have take over the show. And there was an attempt initially with David and Andy from, they were Mad Dwarf. I guess by then they were already not Mad Dwarf, Coal Iron Works and stuff, to work that with Matt, who had been as a guest artist on Tony's version of the show early on. And then that just kind of fell apart, and the company came out here, met with us, and we kind of ran from there. And, there was some concern because reality TV, there's a lot of downs to it. But the show, went really well for us. And then when the promoters who owned the show went under, the show was purchased by a Vietnamese bank as just a financial asset. And I was able to kind of work out with them and build a production company around, restarting Man at Arms. And so that's what we've been doing, and we've been lucky to pull some really big brands, Microsoft and
Yeah.
2K, and a lot of the really big video game companies have worked with us, and that's been great. And now the production company that we built around that is not just producing for YouTube. We're producing commercials for Riot Games, which is League of Legends, and a few other things that nobody, our name's not necessarily attached to, but it's really been a really cool ride. And I hired the guys who were making the show, the production team that was making the show. Hired the same people, and we hired a bunch of the same director of photography, the cameraman, essentially. That made it a little more seamless because then we had a set of eyes that had created the original show to continue forward, and those guys are all still working with me, even on the like I said, on the Riot side, where nobody ever sees our videos there. All that's still happening. So, and we're still filming. It's really difficult to stop production here to film if we don't have a major brand that is stepped in to pay us. So a lot of times we're producing a video, it won't be something that's sponsored, and it's really hard to just stop the whole shop because it's really invasive to the shop. The first thing that has to happen is all the lights get turned off. Like they turn off all the lights and you can't see what you're doing, and production kind of stops. And John Mitchell, who runs the shop here, who's been with me now off and on since the early 90s, he hates it. I mean, he runs the shop and he hates anything that gets in the way. So unless there's a real financial reason for us to do that, he would just assume us never film a damn thing here. But that can't be part of it. It's all part of it. And
Sure.
And keeping the company name in the the forefront of the mind of our consumer, our buyers, and our excited fans basically all year long has dramatically changed our ability to sell product. So we try and keep that going, because in January, the guy who won't be at the Renaissance Festival until late August is thinking about buying something, even if he can't. We're selling through Cult of Athena online, who was great. That was a great situation. I really liked working with them. I just can't make enough product.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. I mean, they were keeping about 80 pieces in stock at all times, and I think now they might have 5. Something like that. And I mean, that was everything from our production, kind of standards to full Damascus custom, pattern welded swords with gem set in them. And it was a really great situation, and I'd like to get back to it, but I don't know how, basically now, because I can't. You've been to my place. It's my garage. There's
I know.
a ton of people in my garage every day. They get here at 7:00 in the morning. And I don't think, I thought I was going to expand. We rented a big warehouse down the road that has big electricity, and made a lot of sense. And it just I don't know. If I was 10 or 15 years younger, I would probably be looking to expand to a bigger place. But I'm just about turning 60, and I'm not slowing down too much, but I'm not speeding up either. That's for sure. So,
do you guys still have that church property as well?
Yeah. So the church that's up next door is still part of the property, but that's never going to be something where we're producing more swords out of there. We're really trying to look how to expand some of the shop space down here so I can move down. Maybe not the office, but like the packing and the handle work and the leather and all that kind of stuff, which is up there. We'd like to kind of consolidate it down here. But yeah, I don't know. Just trying to figure out what the long term for that property will be. And we recently, we're just in the process of opening a retail store that's a garden and goods and nursery with my wife and another church that we're renting, actually, that we're looking at buying in our area. Actually, across the street from where my shop was all through the 2000s before we moved out here to this location. So we got a lot going on, but I'm not sure that I can expand too much in the sword world. I think that think that 60 to 100 pieces is kind of where our terminal quantity. We're doing a lot more casting work, and there's a good chance that I will hire 1 or 2 more people to just be doing foundry work here. I love it. I absolutely love doing that work. But I can't do it alone when I'm there's just too much going on.
Are you just doing bronze and brass, or are you also doing steel?
At this point, we're just pouring silicon bronze, and silver and gold and stuff like that, but not. So pouring steel is a pretty big undertaking, and I don't suspect that we'll do that unless we move to the other building we have down the road. If we move down there, there's enough power down there to put a big induction melter. Yeah, because you need to go induction if you're going to be pouring steel. It's quite a big undertaking to change to steel. The power requirements are huge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, cool. Awesome. So with all the so you're also doing, you said, the awards and stuff for the various companies?
Yeah. So we do a fair amount of work with Games Workshop. So Games Workshop, we both make the Golden Demon swords, which is their award for painting figures, which is kind of a big thing for them. That's a big part of their business. And then they have these big tournaments that are kind of round robin stuff with all the miniature wars, where they will go down to whoever the champions are for that. And we just ship with a big plaque that basically looks like their logo, but they're 3/4 inch thick steel, so they're monstrous things. They're a foot square, 3/4 inch. Matter of fact, this is this is a brass, the brass that's going to go on,
nice.
For the thing. I don't know if you guys can read it.
Yeah.
Warhammer 40,000 best overall, best general, and then Age of Sigmar best general, that kind of stuff. Kill Team best general, whoever's running that stuff. So we make all the awards for that. And then we make these, like I said, these Golden Demon swords, which are these big, huge presentation swords that they do. Yeah. And then there's if you go to the events, there's the big hammer that we made, the Hammer of Sigmar that we made for Man-at-Arms. They have that, and then they have a Thunder Hammer, which is kind of this powered hammer with a giant skull and huge spikes all over it. And those are on big plaques that have they have small engraved plates that have the winners from each year, or each. I guess they do it four times a year. So each one, there's a whole series of plaques all over this display, and we made those displays. And if you go way back with Games Workshop, they had a football game, basically, that was orcs playing football, and we made all the trophies for that. So if you search the net, you can find the Blood Bowl Cup, which is a huge bronze skull cup. It was the first big thing, sculptural piece that I ever cast. So that was 50 or 60 pounds. Bronze. It's all skulls all over it. And matter of fact, the skulls that make up the base of that trophy are the skulls that we use on almost all of our pirate swords. So if you see our pirate swords at a Renaissance Festival with a jawless skull, that skull was made for that trophy originally.
Huh. So that's really cool.
I've had probably 3 of those.
Yep. Well, if you search Blood Bowl Cup, or if you look, you can probably find it on my Facebook in some profile pictures. I'm holding the cup, and my hair's red, so it was a long time ago. I'm holding the cup like this.
Wow. So how do you guys find the time for all that now? Is that just along with the standard production?
First off, you don't have kids. That's the most important part if you want to be able to do everything. And you don't sleep. So if you do those 2 things, you have a lot more time in your life.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So one question I wanted to ask as well is do you have a favorite thing, I guess, through time that you like to make, and has that changed, I guess, over the 10, 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, it does change a little bit here and there, but there are always there's always things when you finish them up that they kind of strike you, and you go, man, this is really a lot of fun. Sometimes it's stressful. A lot of times, for a client, it's really stressful. But when we can make something that is kind of got more time in it, where you got a pattern welded sword and every piece gets made separately and fitted. And some of the guys, the newer guys come in, even if they have the skill to produce that, they don't have the time in their life to stop and make something, because everybody's got to make a living. And it is nice here to be able to, even if it takes a long time, because you got small progression, maybe it's just Friday afternoons is the only time we can work on it. But eventually, when that piece is finished, I love it, especially if it's multiple people involved. I love the group coming together and creating something. But I know that for some of the guys, like sole authorship is a sense of pride for them too, and so we try and make sure everybody can, do a little bit of both. But for me personally, I kind of like all of this stuff. I really do. That's a big plus. There's never a time when a rapier is finished when I don't pick it up and think back to my early years of fencing in college and all that kind of stuff. And so rapiers I particularly like. I love Viking swords, definitely. I don't know. I mean,
it's a bit all of it.
Yeah, I really do. I do kind of like all of it. And, some of it is about the new process, or about something that we like. I love wrought iron. We've been cladding wrought iron on the outside of a cutting edge for years. It's very popular now, and I can see why. I mean, I love the look of that kind of rawer material. And so, that's so like a wrought iron sax with an edge on it. Love them, and everyone's different then, because you're forging everything. That's the nice thing about forging, is that every single piece, even if you intentionally are trying to make pairs, you're not making pairs. They're a little different every time.
Yeah.
So definitely love that.
Awesome. So I know we also talked a little bit beforehand. So you guys are currently working with some productions as well. So either stage or film, or.
Yeah. We don't have any film stuff happening right at the moment. But we do regularly build and rebuild all the weapons for Disney for Aladdin on Broadway. So we work with Disney Theatrical. We say on Broadway, but it's not just the Broadway play. It's in almost every major city in the world. They'll have a Disney tour that is Aladdin. Some of them are permanent, and some of them kind of move around. They might be there for 6 or 8 months or a year. And then move. So, Hamburg, Germany, and London, and Sydney, Australia, and the only one that was really difficult was for Tokyo. So when we work in Japan, you can't even ship aluminum blades to Japan. So for Japan, what we did is we made all the fixtures and all the fittings, and then kind of taught them what they needed to do to make the blades themselves. The swords that we ship into Japan for like the Battle of Nations guys and that kind of stuff, we actually make the blades out of chromoly pipe, and there's holes drilled in them so that they can see that they're hollow and not solid pieces of steel. And that's what the guys use for sparring over there, because they're not allowed to have blades at all. So that, that's kind of different. But the Aladdin thing we've been doing now for, gosh, I don't know when Aladdin started, maybe 8 or 10 years now. When we first got involved in that, the fight choreographer who brought us on boards for that was like, look, you guys got to take this seriously, because you don't have kids now, but this could put your kids through college. They're like, this, if a play goes on Broadway and it fails, it runs 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
So in the case of there's 60 swords on stage, and they're doing 9 shows a week, there's a lot of attrition for the blades there, even in like the 70-75 aluminum. As we know, it's super tough, but you can you can make anything.
So I got the chance to do. So I think I shared it when I did it. I'm trying to remember now. Colton, I think I talked about it.
So we talked about them. Yeah.
So I did some aluminum blades for a local Robin Hood production, which was
great, because I yelled at you about the prices you quoted.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that was my cost price, not what I would actually sell them for. and I said the wrong thing. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. But those were like super, super basic. Like, no beveling at all. Just it's a flat bar, 70-75, and we just rounded them off as much as possible.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, it's pretty amazing. If you have any of that scrap, you should make a blade out of it and go out and test it, and you will not believe how it will perform.
I did.
If you don't hit a piece of steel with it, it's as lethal as any sword.
I know. I did. I
Pretty
tried to
amazing.
break it because I wanted to know the limits of it, and I literally had to put it in a vise and just constantly cycle it back and forth to break it. That's the only way I could do it. So it's really strong. But yeah, so I guess you guys don't do aluminum that much, though, right? Is it just for the?
We keep about 50 blades here in stock so that we can respond to Disney. Like I just went a really long time getting them their next batch of stuff because we didn't have stock here. So we keep a fair amount of material in now for them. Like I said, about 50 pieces. And I did have some broadswords, cut when we got material. But not for any particular client. We'll make a pair, and they'll get shipped to some. I mean, I've got a handful of customers who buy them, and there's not a lot of good stuff out there. There's a couple people making decent aluminum stuff, but not many. Lewis Shaw is mostly working in aluminum.
He's the name.
Jesse Bolesky does some aluminum stuff, and his work's beautiful. Both those guys, they do beautiful work. They're really excellent hilt makers. But there's not too many people. I've seen some stuff from David Baker, but everything that I saw was really old and was not the quality of his work today. I don't know if he does any aluminum. He probably doesn't have time. It's like me.
I have an older aluminum of his by accident. I'm not sure if he's still doing aluminum. Everything I've seen lately has been steel.
Yeah, I think he's probably just too busy to deal with that, to be honest.
Yeah. Have you guys ever been approached by that?
It's just I'm pretty firm. Like I know how much everybody makes, and when they approach makers and they want to pay them nothing, no interest whatsoever. I know what the girl getting coffee is making, and if you can't pay the Smiths that much money, it's just not happening. You know what I mean? There's no reason not to give those Smiths base pay when they're coming for those shows. I think it's absolutely terrible that they do that. But the show's super popular. It's still running. They're still making stuff. I know like Jay Nielsen, he's a friend. And I just feel really, I kind of shut my mouth when A&E, which owns History Channel, when A&E bought our show internationally, even though the TV show didn't run in the U.S., it ran on, just the El Rey network. The TV version ran worldwide on A&E, so we were on History and Discovery. And so I just kind of shut my mouth up about that. But I've always been kind of appalled that they couldn't, give the Smiths, give them a couple $100 a day, something. You know what I mean? Like, I really, that leaves a really bad taste in my mouth when I know how much that production is. There isn't an episode airing on History Channel that doesn't cost more than $400,000.
Right.
And if you can't pay the lead characters on that show a couple $100 a day, I just think it's terrible.
So is the argument that they're going for the prize? Is that the argument?
Yeah, I don't care. That's not much of an argument to me. I think it's a terrible way to treat people. Now, admittedly, early on in the show, they didn't treat people very well on that show early on. But that was just the nature of the business. Now, I have heard from quite a few people that it's not like that now. That things have gotten better. But like when Ilya was on there, I can tell you that we went from an extremely professional staff that was filming like House of Cards and stuff like that, and that's the guys we had here filming with us, to him, working with those guys, and then, in the championship round, they sent a team down here to video Ilya, and they just didn't know what the hell they were doing. I mean, they were condescending, and they were not professional. And that's the last, Ilya doesn't talk about that because he's contractually not allowed to, but I can say anything I want, and they were not professional, and I was very disappointed. So
yeah, it's a shame. They've asked me to be on that show, and I would be like, one, I would look terrible on that show because I haven't forged in forever. So most everything I do is grinding, and yeah, that's mainly the reason why I wouldn't worry about even bothering it.
Right, and you know, if you go back, if you watch Ilya's episode, the guy John Gruber, who was first eliminated, when Ilya went on that show, it was to make armor, which is what he ended up making, that fancy shield that he ended up making. Well, John Gruber is one of the best known armorers in the country, and when Ilya saw John, he just simply assumed that John was going to win. But they made the first round a forge welding round, and John lied about ever having forge welded anything in his entire life. And so he was eliminated before he got to show any skill because he'd never done it. He had no idea. The assumption was there that they wouldn't be doing any forging. And of course, that was not the case. So, pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've known some really good smiths that have gone on that show and then lost business because, you know,
I mean, there's some excellent makers who are top makers who went on that show, and they don't understand pressure. And that was, you know, there wasn't a lot of question in my mind that Ilya was going to hit that. First off, Ilya's skilled. That, you know, we all know he's very, very skilled. But he understood the pressure and he understood the camera. When somebody sticks a camera in your face, at first you kind of freak out, man. It takes a long time to get used to it. And by the time Ilya was on the show, that was an old hat thing for him. So them sticking a camera in his face and trying to make him nervous was, you know, not doing anything, you know, basically. So I think he had a huge advantage going in, above and beyond the fact that he's a great problem solver with kind of, there's no barriers to the way he thinks. You know, you throw a problem at him and he doesn't go, that's impossible. There's never a time when he says that's impossible. So I felt like he had a really good run there. And since then, you know, we've had several Forged in Fire competitors working here. You know, Decker Knives. So Decker was working here for, you know, well over a year, making stuff with us, and you just get a feel for, you know, Derek Kemper and all those guys. You know, so just a great skill level. And they had an advantage going into that show, and that especially if they've dealt with any kind of pressure like Renaissance festivals, where there's a lot of pressure week after week. I feel like that pressure that you feel on the show, where you've got a timer running, you know, that works real well.
Did they ever ask you to make any of their, you know, how at the end they have a blade that they display? So you got
right. I think Dave Baker makes all of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask is,
I'm pretty sure Dave Baker makes all of that. Now, if you ever watch the show that came after that, Night Fight, that came after that for 2 years, so we made the weapons for Night Fight. There might have been one or two other makers, but the majority of the weapons and the like big two-handers and all that kind of stuff, we made all of that stuff. As a matter of fact, Paul Friedel, who was second place in Night Fight, he's full-time here. He's one of our primary sword makers.
Nice. Well, awesome. One of the other things that I really enjoyed, I didn't know about, you know, a long time ago, but was when I started seeing you post on Facebook about your Jags. I was like, oh, that's another thing we got in common. So
I grew up as a kid with an older cousin who's like 15 years older than me, and visually looks a lot like me. Maybe not so much now, but early on, you know, red hair and the beard and the whole bit. And he was an exotic car mechanic and worked around shops where there was amazing things. And so I was able to get kind of exposed to that stuff early on. And I had been in a hunting accident. It sounds worse than it was. At 6 years old, I had caught my arm on a barbed wire fence and torn the inside of my arm and had to have stitches. And the doctor that my father knew, who was in the area, who stitched me up, was a collector of toys, like, you know, matchboxes and all kinds of stuff. And he gave me a little Jaguar when I was 6 years old, and that stuck with me. And so my vehicle life, even though a bunch of it has been as a pedestrian because I buy broken and and terrible vehicles, has been quite a few Jaguar. And of course, now that we you know, have a decent cash flow, and you know, you get older in life, you get a little more, I don't know, a little easier to buy things. Jags has been a big part of my life. So I have a collection of Jags going back to the late 40s. I have a period built C-type Jag. I have a couple of XKEs from the 60s, and then some more modern stuff. some 1990s supercharged, V8 cars and stuff.
Yeah. Is the XK your favorite?
I don't know what my favorite is anymore. I'm hoping that it's my 40s race car, which is being rebuilt now because it's a money pit. I would say currently that gray XK 8100 that I have, that's a manual transmission refit. That's currently my favorite car to drive. But I did just buy an XKR, which is the supercharged version of that car, in a black coupe, which is kind of considered the best of that ilk of car. But I feel like I need to do a few things to make it more my car. I like them lowered. I like them really stiff suspension. And
what year is that
one? So that's an that's bad. I don't know off the top of my head, right? I think it's an 03. Yeah, so it's either an 01 or an 03 because I have 3 of those coupes. So it had been my intention to sell a couple of the other cars I have, and I'm looking at a 50s D-type recreation because those cars are millions of dollars. So I'm looking at a recreation from a 1950s D-type, but that'll involve me. I've got that 65 Cobra, so I have to sell the Cobra and a couple other things to kind of get into that higher end stuff. But cars are definitely a sickness, and like I keep telling you, whenever you're ready, I'll find you the right car.
Yeah, so like XK is my favorite, but it's the model.
Yeah, you like the X150, which is the next body style.
Yeah.
So and those are fairly different, and they're faster too. To be honest, that 150s, because you can get them with a 5-liter motor, you can get them supercharged. They have paddle shifters. But we'll find you just the right one when you're ready. Yeah, and they're not honestly, they're not terribly expensive, and that car is not particularly expensive to keep on the road. Maintenance isn't terrible. And in the Tampa area, there's lots of good shops in the Tampa area. So
I didn't notice that. That's one of the higher Jags, I guess, that score for reliability, which was surprising.
Yeah.
So,
I would say so.
That was designed by Ford, though, right? Is that true?
No, that's the 150. That's actually after the Ford-owned era. That's back to the Jag-owned era. So the nice thing about that is that the electronics really do get a lot better during the Ford era. Although those motors, Ford people love to say that those are Jags have Ford motors in them, but it's quite the other way around. Right. The Fords that use that V8 basically have a Jag motor in them. So that V8 is a adult Jag at that point in time. And then by the time you get in the X150, you're back to Jaguar.
So I actually test drove one a couple weeks ago, but it needed a lot of work. So
you should be able to find a really good one, to be quite honest. There, especially out of Florida, there are a lot of cars with low mileage down where you are, and people kind of take that as their last car, and so they move to Florida, and then you can be the next person. So that's
they were asking like 16 for it too, and I was like, I think I can do better.
16 to 20, 23 for an R with low mileage maybe right now. But you want to buy the best one you can possibly find. There's no question about that. It's worth the extra money to buy the very best that you can find, or you end up with a warehouse and a parking lot full of broken Jag.
That was actually going to be me with Harleys for a little bit, but I put the brakes on it before I saw what was coming. So I just have one right now, Harley. So, but I'm probably going to sell that pretty soon because I just never drive it. So
that's my problem. I've had problems with my back lately, and so I'm not driving the Cobra at all because on a good day, the next day I hurt. So I think that car is definitely the one that's got to go away at this point.
Yeah, I bet that's a nice car though. So
it's a lot of fun, and that's like lowered and stiff and blacked out in carbon fiber.
Yeah, that's why your back hurts, right?
That's exactly why my back hurts. Yeah.
Well, I guess so. We're probably going to step off here soon. We're about at the hour, but I don't think that you had met Colton yet, but so Colton's still pretty new to the sword world, but he's a machinist by trade, and he picked up sword stuff like super quick. He's one of those guys where he sneezes and like a beautiful golden sword.
Right. And I follow. I've been following this show, so I've been watching. Because I mean, you make it sound like we just kind of came on, but Chris and I have been friends for a long time.
Yeah. So I guess Hammering already happened this year, right? Or am I way off?
Yep. And we didn't really announce it, to be honest, because we wanted fewer people. So we still probably had 50 to 60 people here in the shop. But in the past, we may have had as many as 80, and it's just too much. It's too much for us to deal with. So we'll see where we go in the future.
There's a lot. Yeah. But as long as everyone's bringing food, right?
Well, we supply all the food for the most part. So yeah.
Well, we like to get Colton and Josh and myself.
That'd be great. Soon. And you guys aren't, you guys aren't just limited to coming then. If you guys want to come out sometime, we can make space. Try and make it on a Friday.
Yeah. I was actually trying to think. Is there any in Baltimore? Is there any museums downtown that have any?
Absolutely unbelievable museum. So the Walters Art they now call it the Walters Art Museum. It's a free attendance museum that has really beautiful stuff. And don't forget, if you're here in the Baltimore area, you're only 2 hours from Philly, and the museum in Philly is fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
that's where I was born.
there are good swords and armor and stuff at Walters Art Gallery downtown.
Okay. Well, I want to take these guys and do like a whole tour. So we'll probably start in Baltimore, go up to Philly, then go over to the Met in New York, and just
right. Yeah, and it's still, you can also catch, and people don't ever talk about this, but so the Smithsonian has the largest collection of swords in the world, I believe. And I've been in the storage area, and so they don't have a display per se, but there is a fairly good display worth seeing in the Museum of the American Indian. I think it's up on the second or third floor. There's actually a display of the weapons that the American Indian would have met.
Oh, wow.
Why they made the decision to do that, it seems odd, but they're very, very high quality display, worthwhile catching. I'm pretty sure it's still there. So
it's nowhere near as large, but they have a similar one in St. Augustine.
Fort St. Augustine at the fort, maybe. Is there a separate museum or at the fort?
Yeah, they have a lot of Spanish rapiers, and here's what the Indians would have been against. Yeah,
right.
So, a lot of local finds, too, which is pretty cool. But
what's the guy's name? Was it Al Sharp or something? I can't remember the guy's name that was down there for years at the museum. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure I met him, but
it's going way back. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I knew a lot of those guys because I was doing 17th century reenacting in the early 80s.
Oh, cool.
So, okay. But that's many years ago, many gray cells ago.
Did you do some down here in St. Augustine?
Like I said, a long time ago. So.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, that's one of my favorite places in Florida to visit. But I knew there was a lot more up north that we haven't got to yet. So, I go to the Met all the time.
Yeah.
I do the behind-the-scenes stuff as well because there's a lot of pieces there. What's nice about the Met is you can go online and just they have, even though they're behind the scenes, they usually have it cataloged online somewhere.
Right.
So you can look up some blades and say, "Oh, I want to see that," and send a couple of the curators a note saying, "Hey, I'm coming up. Is it all right if I see this piece?" And they're very accommodating.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty cool. But yeah, they have so much stuff. I think the Royal Armories over in Leeds, I think, has a bigger collection in general, but I might not have seen
it's all pretty, yeah. I mean, I've been all through the one at Leeds. I got really lucky. It was early on, before they were letting people take pictures, but I was there with the guy that owns the Night Shop in England and with Fabrice. The maker Fabrice, the French guy, does a lot of hammers and stuff and daggers. And the three of us went there, for handling day. That was really a lot of fun. And I don't even know how long we were there. I think we were there like 4 hours or 5 hours, where it was supposed to be like a half hour. Instead they let us just kind of go through everything. So that was really a good time. And that was the first time I'd met Fabrice, and he was, just fantastic. I
never know how to say his last name. Is it like Cog?
I don't either, so I just call it Fabrice. My French is not great.
I can't speak French.
So but I love his work. I think he's a top.
In fact, I think I know. 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 I think No, I don't. Sometimes I have. Well, I had one of his pieces here, but it's not here at the moment.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. My personal collection is. I think at one point of your blades back in the day, I think I was telling Colton that I think I had 12 or 13
Wow.
at one point, and I would use them, from the pirate show to the Ren Fair, to actually 2 Ren Fairs, the medieval show. I was using at least one of your guys' pieces. So
yeah, but it's kind of funny because that's what we get known for, for that type of work that kind of gets bashed around. But I mean, we probably make 100 custom sharps a year here, and no one ever sees them. I mean, you might see a picture here and there on our Facebook or something like that, but people don't realize that we make a fair number of high-end custom sharps too. They just, they're still warm going in the box on a Thursday, and they're at the show, and and they're gone Saturday morning, and so nobody ever sees them. But
hopefully we'll see them cutting in a competition sometime soon or something.
yeah,
that'd be cool. Alrighty, well, thanks for all your time.
Sure, man. Anytime, anytime.
Yeah,
this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, sorry we didn't involve the chat so much, Colton. But it's
no,
we've known each other a
this
while.
is exactly what I do every time. I'm always just I'm just taking it in. I'm just having a blast listening to it all.
Yeah. I want Colton to be on just to absorb it and take it all in. So, and hopefully Josh can join us next time as well, because I know he likes.
Yeah, I'd love to pick his brain a little bit about what he's doing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of film stuff. Yeah, he's doing all sorts now, and he has been for quite a while. So it's always good to get everyone together and hang out. So, but yeah, thanks again, and I'm sure I know we haven't covered everything that I want to talk about, but we're running a little late, so we'll definitely catch up. And also, we're doing the our sword trivia stuff once a month-ish now. So if you ever want to jump in on that for fun, let us know.
Yeah, I'll check in on that. Sure.
If you jump in, you're definitely going to beat me. I
you never know.
Record so far.
Yeah, that's all right. You'll probably beat me as well. But so I guess before we jump off, let's do some quick closing stuff. Again, I don't think you need to, but if you want to, Kerry, if you want to let everyone know where they can find you and all over the
so Baltimore Knife and Sword on Facebook. BaltimoreKnife.com or BaltimoreKnifeAndSword.com. IMakeSwords.com is our primary website, and we're on either with Baltimore Knife or with the All Me channel. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, kind of everywhere.
Yeah. So I'll have I'll do the YouTube and the Facebook and Instagram links below. I don't personally have TikTok, so I don't know if I can do that, but I think I can find it.
No, don't put the TikTok link on your YouTube.
No? Okay. I will put that.
Do not do that.
But I didn't know. Is that a thing? I didn't know it was a thing.
That's your YouTube analytics of the day. Do not tie your things together with TikTok.
Good to know. So, Colton, you want to tell everyone or remind everyone where they can find you real quick?
Yeah, Copperthorn Customs, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the things. You can find me here too. So.
Yeah, and then obviously, if you guys are watching, you found our YouTube channel, but you can find us on Sterling Armory on Facebook and on Instagram, and then Baltimore Knife and Sword. I think, I'm quite certain that Sterling Armory has Baltimore Knife and Sword as one of the favorites. So if you go to our page, you'll see Baltimore Knife and Sword as a favorite of Sterling Armory. So a really easy way to get there, but it's also linked below. So thanks again, Kerry, for all your time, and excited to do another one.
All right, sounds good.
This has been a lot of fun to meet you, talk to you. This has been really fun.
Yeah, man, it's good talking to you.
Yeah, I can't wait to get him up because I want to get Colton's a machinist.
You'd enjoy it. We got a little bit of everything here from ancient rose engines all the way up to CNC mills, and I've got a 5-axis custom lathe with a servo head on it. And
oh my gosh!
Matter of fact, I've just put an inquiry into Haas. We're just going to pick up a small. I've got a VF1, but it won't actually fit in our shop. It's down the other building. So we're going to buy a brand new TM1P and put it in here because it's pretty compact. So that we there's a whole slew of milling machines and lathes and stuff here. So
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
We're doing little hand crank stuff.
Yep.
But it worked. So.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, thanks again, and again, thanks everyone watching, and hopefully you're enjoying. If you have any topics and stuff that you want us to cover, and if you have any questions for Kerry that we can possibly get to on the next time, let us know below as well. And yeah, we will catch you guys. Oh, and for everyone hang on for a sec because I'm gonna end the chat. But stay on. Don't go anywhere. All right. So thanks, guys, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right. See ya.